you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. I learned this the hard way with my first company. So I created NetSuite, the world's #1 cloud business system. NetSuite gives you the visibility and control you need to make smart decisions and grow with confidence. That's why companies who use NetSuite grow 3 times faster than the S&P 500.
Schedule your free product tour right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Digital Leaders Show, where we're talking key issues and news at the intersection of business and technology in hopes of making you a better digital leader. Today, we're discussing new advances in AI voice technology, plus other headlines for the week. We're live every Wednesday at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the audio recording is available on major podcast platforms the following week. Thanks to our sponsor, Oracle NetSuite. Their unified cloud business management solution helps organizations operate more effectively and provide real-time visibility and operational performance data. ERPA AI members and followers get preferred pricing of 40 to 45% off. Just go to erpaai.com/NetSuite to register. I'm Dan Goodstein. I head up ERPA AI. It's the Institute for Robotic Process Automation and Artificial Intelligence, as well as the Digital Enterprise Institute. We're a professional association, media, and peer-to-peer research network, providing education, networking, and advice to over 130,000 members globally, all around enterprise AI, automation, digital transformation. Check us out at erpaai.com. My co-host is Kieran Gilmurray, Senior Advisor to ERPA AI, author, industry thought leader, LinkedIn top voice. He's been awarded the best LinkedIn influencers for AI and marketing. Kieran, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Delighted to be here. And as ever, this has been an eventful technology week, hasn't it?
More and more so. I don't know if I'm just in the algorithms or what, but I keep saying on every week that it's been a hot week. But first of all, welcome. We've had you as a guest, but it's great to have you now as a co-host every other week. So appreciate you being here. I know you're traveling a lot and busy, but hey, this is the world we live in. Maybe we can get you an AI agent. We'll figure that out.
Well, the Agentics is the thing at this moment, the hottest thing since RPA was invented back in the day. So you never know. But delighted. Look, really great to be here. And I have to say, I have a lot of fun traveling. So as you and I were talking earlier on, back from Saudi Arabia, off next week to Dublin. Where the heck else am I off to? Amsterdam, Brussels, London, and somewhere else. But all of those, there's always something happening there. There's always someone doing something technology. There's always something AI, something automation related. So I can't wait to start to bring some of that learning back into this as well to share it, because I'm a tremendous fan of saying, all boats rise on a floating or a rising tide. So let's see where we get over the next numbers of weeks and months.
Not only that, but we have another perspective here. If you can't tell, Kieran does not have a New York accent, so we get a little representation on what's happening on the other side of the pond. But it's good, right? Actually, today we're talking a lot about the U.S. side of things in the headlines, at least. DOJ going after Google and all those things, but so much of the regulation around AI has really been prompted in the UK, the European Union. So love your perspective. So what do you think on this Google thing? I mean, it's starting to look more and more like Google is not going to look the way it did a year ago, a year from now.
Yeah, it's interesting because this then does come back to the kind of European perspective that I can bring, because for a long while here, it's always been a little bit of, is it Europe versus the US government? In other words, Europe been going, look, surely this is a monopoly. When someone has got whatever it is, 70, 80, 90% of search traffic, that doesn't feel from a European perspective to be a good thing. Any company with that size, they start to really ask questions. And like all big companies, it's been sued over the years. I'm not anti-Google, but I adore the technology. I use it all the time. What I worry about, and this is where I get it from a personal perspective, is look, if you're so dominant, how do we know you're the most innovative thing at the party? How do you know you're going to behave in the right way to keep innovating? Or are you blocking other people coming into the market to create new and better ideas that will cost, consumers ever decreasing amounts of money? So it's kind of interesting when big monopolies, dare I use the word, are examined just to test that. I don't think the default answer should be, we're going to break you up. I think it should be, we're going to see if you're, pretty competitive, you work really well with your customers, you deliver at a really cost-effective price, and you're not harming the market. So I kind of like this. But I recognize, and here's the thing, Dan, how much money do Google pay out per year in defending themselves against corporates and governments and everything else? It must be a horrendous number.
Well, I mean, if you look at it as a percentage of revenue, it's probably nothing, right? So
Well, that's true.
I think the problem, right? And as a U.S. centric perspective, we're always maybe even more concerned about holding back innovation and entrepreneurship, but it's hard. It's hard to defend that when you see some of these numbers and you think to yourself, hey, they could spend $1 billion in legal fees and it would still be worth it, probably more. So anyway, we actually talked about the ad business side of this on the show last week. The kind of news this week is DOJ basically coming out and saying, since they've a judge ruled that Google search business is a monopoly, now they're proposing options, and one of them is completely splitting off Chrome and Android from the kind of Google mothership, and the ability to have these kind of exclusive contracts. But the other part that's interesting is, they're suggesting that Google has to share data on its ads, its search indexing, its AI data that's being trained on with competitors. So that completely changes the landscape and also brings up, another round of privacy concerns.
I'm not surprised, but again, you would expect me, from a European perspective, because we've introduced so much, GDPR, European AI Act, and everything else that really puts a lot of onus on people who produce software to be a heck of a lot more transparent. But, is it the right way to actually open up a company by saying, right, see your secret sauce here, your algorithms and your AI and everything you're doing, tell your competitors? Well, if a dominant market position is nobody can get involved, and if that's the case, look, yes, definitely bring punishment along. But don't really want to force me to give up my secret sauce because someone else just isn't as competitive as I am. Maybe Google's got a little bit too big. I don't know. I'd love to see the numbers. I'd love to see the outcome. Maybe it's just impossible to compete with them anymore, because I was having this argument earlier on with someone in the nice sense, good argument. We don't say search, we say we Google it. We don't say, you chat bots. We say, we'll go to OpenAI when we mean Gemini and Bing and Bard and Claude and Perplexity and everything else. So again, we're in danger of capping innovation by blocking big companies who deserve, all the rewards and everything they get, but also blocking out a market when it becomes so dominant. But interfering in market, it feels artificial as well, doesn't it? It's like bias in data. I'm going to fix bias in data by trying to make it non-biased, by putting in my own thoughts and opinions. I don't know. It's a complex topic, but I like healthy markets, and I think you deserve rewards once you have created something wonderful and unique, but not to the extent that you block innovation and ultimately harm consumers. So let's see where it lands.
Yeah. Well, and as our audience knows, I can make this case on both sides of the coin. But as I hear you say that, well, hey, is it a monopoly because we Google it? Is it an unfair burden for the tech industry where you see other industries? You also when you get hurt, you put a Band-Aid on, right? You don't put a adhesive bandage on, but we're not going after Johnson & Johnson as a monopoly. So, that's for me, the issue is there's definitely some justification here, but then you look at some other industries and you're like, why doesn't it apply to that industry? Right. So interesting stuff. By the way, a separate case this week, a U.S. judge issued a permanent injunction that's going to force Google to offer alternatives to its Google Play Store and downloading apps on Android phones. I suspect something similar is coming for Apple. I know it's already the case in the European Union. And while we're talking about government, TikTok is being sued by 14 states in the U.S. for being intentionally addictive to kids. It's a bipartisan group of more than a dozen attorneys filing separate lawsuits yesterday, basically saying it's a mental health issue. They know what they're doing, and This is on the kind of coattails of, as we talked about a few weeks ago, the Surgeon General in the U.S. saying that there should be a warning label on social media like there is for cigarettes.
Yeah, I have to say I'm a bit of a fan of that one. You know what I mean? You and I are cognizant that we can't search too much, but even I find myself the odd time I go on to Instagram and the next minute 2.5 hours of my life have disappeared. You know, is that a good thing mentally? Yeah, like the odd time relaxing. If you're addicted to rugby as you are me, then, you know, 2.5 hours of small videos is a bit of fun. But there is something to be had here. You know, when I look at the algorithms, you think about them, I think it's maybe a part unintended consequence. The question becomes, it sounds like what they're saying, this is an intended consequence. But we've used, you know, who wrote the paper a couple of years ago, Dan? They were talking about maybe, you know, it was a Google, Facebook, one of the others. They said, look, the psychology behind it is to encourage people to stay on the platform longer. The longer you stay, the more we advertise. And that's sort of going, well, that's okay if you give me all the things that I want and need. But what happens when, let's say, for example, and I was having this conversation with a social care worker in the UK the other day, someone self-harms, someone has an eating disorder. You know, if we're reinforcing that view that this is correct and this is great and, you know, off you go, keep having those disorders, then there's something tragically wrong. And the person themselves is a healthcare worker. And that's what they said. This individual who had a history of self-harm went to a website, seen self-harming. Everybody was talking about if it was the most normal thing. They were providing advice and direction and everything else, how to go about it, how to hide it. And you're going, oh, there's something wrong in the world when AI can fix so much of that. You know, so TikTok's been called out many a time on this. You know, people have claimed it. Has anybody actually got behind their algorithm and looked at it? I thought a couple of years ago, the US government was trying to break it up. I know some governments have went, look, this is tracking, this is whatever. Whether that's just, for want of a better phrase, anti-Chinese government, who knows what the politics is. Yeah. I kind of like, you know, independent-minded people dissecting things and saying, look, for the greater good, there is a problem. You know, someone once did it, argue it or not, with cigarettes. Alcohol, we have the same thing sitting around the place. You know, social media, is it addictive? Absolutely. Are there algorithms written in such a way that it's designed to keep not just kids, but everyone on their screens and addicted? Yeah, hours go by at the same time. I think we need to look at it, you know, just like we did, whatever you want to call it, preservatives in food, and. So
I don't get me started on the preservatives in food, because that's another issue in the U.S. My wife is on this app now where she scans every food barcode and isn't letting my kids have anything with food dye and stuff in it. And, you know, I keep finding all these articles about, you know, half the stuff that we're consuming in the U.S. is illegal in the EU. So another topic for another show. But yeah, you know, it's funny you mentioned the TikTok thing a few years ago. You know, when this first came out, and this is, you know, politics aside, because I think it was originally introduced under the Trump administration. Now this most recent is a Biden administration thing. So it seems like it's pretty bipartisan. But there's definitely a Chinese government connection. And I remember saying, you know, God, it may be a year or two ago, you know, if you're going to ban TikTok, then why TikTok? Why not, you know, Meta? Why not YouTube? Why not? We did a show maybe a year or two ago on how 80-something% of the cameras in New York City run by the police department are manufactured in China. Parts of Air Force One for many years were manufactured in China. So, you know, why not these other, you know, software tech? And the answer kind of was, well, they're based in the U.S., so that one is okay. But now it seems like, you know, they're going after Meta also for this, going after Facebook, you know, for this. So, yeah, I think it's going to be, you know, maybe another changing, you know, landscape. And I agree with you in the sense that, you know, I think one of the most pervasive, concerning issues, probably globally, but certainly in the U.S., is this, you know, echo chamber syndrome that we all end up in, where, you know, everybody just is on these platforms and continues to be fed more content and news that, you know, further supports their argument or conspiracy theories in some cases, and or mental health issues, to your point. And, you know, how do you get out of that rabbit hole when all the information you're consuming is reinforcing your beliefs, right, wrong, good, or bad?
Yeah, but that goes back to who decides what's right and wrong. Now, I'm not suggesting for
Yeah.
one moment that an eating disorder is a bad thing. Let me explain that a little bit more grace and finesse. You know, uh, we go onto these platforms to find like-minded people. And in the past, if we were just dependent upon our local community, let's say we were into, Russian art history for whatever apparent reason between the year 1850 and 1856, we'd have probably met no one, met our own reflection. Now, because of the beautiful power of the internet, we can build a community across the world of thousands. And that goes tick, 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 because that sounds kind of interesting. Russian history, imperial, or, whatever you're into. And we can do that. Now we've got communities, we don't feel as lonely and we get support. Doesn't matter what it is, there's a community. Now we get to something else, and an eating disorder for me, yes, that there's someone needs help there, and then it depends on the group. So if the group is actually providing support that your local government, your health center doesn't provide, some guidance, here's where you might get some help online, here's some things that we found that worked, and so we'd say it's good. But the same technology, the same platform, there are people who are encouraging eating disorders. There are people who, encourage people who are thinking of suicide, death by what, and it's the same technology. And now you should go, well, that's bad. And to my extent, absolutely bad. And, you use AI, use human in the loop, whatever it needs to be to try and, dare we say, Dan, block it, because I don't really want Facebook providing mental health. That's not what they're qualified to do. But now we start to get into nuances. So for some people, people who, let's just say the example are cognac connoisseurs. Well, for some people, that's actually a good thing. For other people, actually, you're encouraging alcoholism, So I get why some of these companies don't want to get involved in setting the rules, and they're waiting for government. And that's part of our society. We say we want government to independently research all these things and, not be mother or father dictating our lives, but just providing the level of guidance, protections we need from big corporates who are, so into capitalism that obviously they put things in place that will harm us, and we want that protection. So I'm glad I'm not the person deciding. That's why I want the government to come in, have the best of mental health, the best of medical researchers, the best of data people to say, well, look, that's actually, fine. That encourages competition. It's healthy. That's not. I need you to address that. And ideally, go and address it yourself. We should never have to step in. But when we do have to step in, we're going to fine you. We're going to make you un-anti-competitive. But how you go about that, interesting as well. As you say, why IT? Why not biopharmacy or something else? There's big sums, big groups and all. So let's see. Interesting topic. I'm glad I'm not God.
Exactly. The last kind of area I wanted to cover before we get into the main topic is just, in the AI world today, OpenAI has now raised $6.6 billion in new funding because of this new funding round, which brings them to a value of 157 billion. 157 billion, raised 6.6 billion. B's we're talking here. Which puts them at household names, Goldman Sachs, AT&T, in just a few years. It also brings up some interesting things around, hey, this was a not-for-profit, and now there's a commercial element of it. Meanwhile, the Nobel Peace Prize was announced to Jeffrey Hinton, the so-called godfather of AI, who quit Google last year after being there for 10 years and saying he basically regrets his life's work and has spent the last couple years pushing warnings out there in the marketplace. So it's an interesting kind of juxtaposition this week.
Yeah, but isn't it though? Because when you work backwards, the Nobel Prize was a Nobel, the inventor of dynamite, originally designed to clear roads.
All right, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think it was. No, again, we better use OpenAI to do that, just in case I'm talking rubbish. But I thought it was. let's
check that footnote.
I'm going to have to do that actually. But I thought it was Nobel came out of dynamite, invented to clear roads and mountains and whatever else, and then someone used it, to create bombs and whatever else. And this is the thing I've been warning about for a while. with AI. You know, you go, look, as a marketing company, and I was working with an Italian company earlier on, and we're going, look, this is amazing. You can do mass personalization, create 50 product specs, 50 pieces of content a day, run them out, not just A/B test, but A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and write AB1, AB2. Isn't it amazing? And then you go, well, actually, what do we do political interference at a minuscule phase? We can personalize our ads to tweak you in the way that we actually want you to tweak. And this is a bit where, for every yin and a yang, I don't think we're having enough conversations around AI. And I know the odd time people use the word singularity and AGI and super intelligence and go, the robots are taking over. And I think it's meshed with a mixture of, this is just craziness speaking, or no, as I put out content, it dies on its backside every time I write about ethics. And I did a survey on this, and I went, why are you not interested? You know, it's good. I think it's good content. It's well written. It's as written as well as the stuff that does really well. And people come up with two alarming calls. One was ethics is boring, so right. And the second one was we assume someone else is taking care of it. This chap, and when you think about it, 4 out of OpenAI's group who were some on the ethics committee basically went, right, or why are we purely for profit, all quit at the same time. It leads to too many questions all at once. You and I know, because we've both worked in senior positions inside of organizations, 4 people don't just quit out of whatever it is, a team of 5, all independently. I could be wrong in this one, therefore, like, keep the lawyers away from me. But it just feels too much. I would love them to say explicitly why they did it. It's interesting. He has said, look, I regret my life's work. I don't think you should. I think we just need more care with artificial intelligence, more people talking about, look, here's the good stuff, but there are risks, and let's tread carefully. Is it worth 157 billion? It goes back again a little bit to what do we determine as value? Our AT&Ts, physical infrastructure, digital lines, we can put a number on that. Or OpenAI, we got a big data center, but most of it's in the promise of what the technology will deliver. I adore all Gen AI technology when applied correctly. The value that it can create is unreal. I definitely think we'll all end up with a Jarvis not in a million miles, and we'll get into that with voice. What's that worth productivity-wise to me and to everyone else on this planet? So is it worth 157 billion? You know, something's worth what you're willing to pay for it. I just hope we're not back in, you know, the year 2000 where everybody was piling money into internet websites and there was never a chance of actually making money out of them. We did it again a couple of years ago when we were in IT land. Same sort of stuff happened again with automation. You know, we'll have digital workers. They'll do absolutely everything, piled in, lots of money, XR, VR, take your thing. You know, it doesn't really matter the tech. It gets really exciting. There's a hype curve, tons of money goes in, and then we go, but how do we get real money out of this? Same Netflix, you know, whatever. We'll build a mass audience, they'll pay money, but it's easy to copy. So where's the uniqueness? I have to say AI is a little bit different for me, though, because I was head of data science for 10 years back 10 years ago, and I knew what it could do. Now Gen AI is suddenly putting AI into everybody's pocket for $20 a month. And I can't tell you how much more productive, how much more creative, how much more innovative, how operationally efficient I am. And if I go back to even the finest example, you know, I was talking to a friend of mine in Norway and on Sunday, and he sent me something where he was passing across the foreword for a book that he written. He says, look, Kieran, it's in Norwegian. I said, send it. And I don't know what he thought, but I opened up my phone and it was OpenAI. In this instance, I took a screen of it, wrote the word translate, didn't even say it was Norwegian, put it in. The next minute, bang, we've got Norwegian. I'm back talking about the second and third paragraph, and he hasn't even batted an eyelid. You know, think about that back in the day. If I was a corporate or a company or something, I'd have hired a translator. I had to find them. It would have taken a couple of weeks. I'd have paid a lot of money. Literally 8 seconds to do this. This is powerful stuff. So it's big numbers, it's big money, look, I don't want to slow innovation down again, but when you have someone like Elon Musk saying, look, stop, you know, stop, when you've someone who wins the Nobel Peace Prize, the godfather of AI, going, look, stop, then we probably should pause. I'm not saying stop innovation, but all of us should say, well, why are they saying that? You know, so let's see. But
yeah, and not only that, you know, we've you know, in the automation space for years, you know, tried to slow down that over, you know, sensationalism of, you know, the Terminator thing happening, right? But you know, what you know, if you think about the 2 things that really makes that, you know, a reality, it's It's the decision making, which has gotten, significantly better. You have this agent automation stuff, right? Where,
Yep.
it's more end to end, execution plus decision making.
And
And then
autonomous.
you have our main topic today, which is so good segue into, the voice element. So good, by the way, that the U.S. government had to outlaw robocalls using AI voice agents. And this guy Hinton is basically saying that's his main. He said yesterday his primary concern is that these systems are more intelligent than us and can eventually take control. So good segue to our topic today. Have you gotten any of these AI phone calls, Kieran?
No, we tend not to. We normally get a human doing it from a particular part of the world, ringing up saying it's from Microsoft and my name's Sean. And Sean doesn't sound the lightest bit like Sean in the world, shall we say, or James or anyone else. And I have to say, I should warn the audience here, my record is 17 minutes keeping a person on the phone where they were telling me you've got a virus in your machine. Oh, wow, seriously, how do you say? We know everything. Well, tell me about it. And it says, I'm amazed. And I went, why are you saying you're so amazed? I don't have a computer. And the next, boom, down went the phone. Of course I had a computer, but you can see this and I've no computer. So 17 minutes is my record. Please, next person rings through. I need to be.
Like those memes I keep watching on TikTok until it's illegal of the guy harassing the call center agents. And
Seen that one.
Right?
Again, there's you and I talking about TikTok and addiction, and look what we're talking about.
Yeah,
but look, for me, it's fascinating because, let's go back to the intelligence bit. That's a debate in itself, and then we will come to voice because Gary Kasparov, before he played, the chess robot, for want of a better phrase, computer's not as intelligent as people. And then he got beaten by it and went, well, it's not real intelligence. Well, what is intelligence? Visual perception, memory, the ability to play chess, the ability to play Go. Is it all of that? Let's be honest, Dan, the average human is not super intelligent. If we're dealing with degrees of quotients of intelligence, then you can quickly surpass many people depending upon what you're doing. But again, it goes back a little bit to the fears. It's not about that. It's how do we use this technology for good? Moving across to voice technology, let's imagine this, in an event of hurricane, which I know you're going through at the moment in the US, you couldn't possibly ring up everybody in Florida, but with a human contact center saying, folks, in all honesty, this is really serious and we need you to get out of the state or take protection, whatever it is. So therefore, it's a good thing. But it goes back to what I said earlier on. One of the things was Joe Biden, allegedly, it wasn't Joe Biden, 20,000 phone calls saying, look, don't worry, we got this. It's Uncle Joe here. You don't need to go out and vote. And we don't know how many people didn't vote, but that's the yang of it. The yin tick, the yang non. And you sort of go, well, we'll only allow certain companies to do it. Well, that's great if they're legal companies and they're set up and they're following government rules. But most of the stuff in the UK is outside of Europe. It's fake telephone numbers. And it's real implications. It's real implication for voting. It's real implication for fraud. And if you look at now cybercrime, the volume of money going into cybercrime today is just astronomical. So again, I get the, look, we need to stop it. But all right, but robocall for what? Emergency center, health warnings, COVID warnings, or emergency for actually don't vote, election interfering and something else? It's more nuanced, isn't it?
Yeah. It's so to catch everybody up, right? There's some really interesting technology out there. And I would put it, I don't know if there's another category, Kieran. I put it in two categories. One is kind of voice mimicking technology, where this thing actually listens to a sound clip of Dan or Kieran and can replicate a voice that sounds a lot like them. And there's multiple uses for that. Phone is one, outbound is one, but it's not the only one. The other is just AI agents, essentially phone call, voice agents, not too dissimilar to your Alexa or your Siri, but actually being able to have intelligent business conversations based on a knowledge base and sound like a real person. Maybe not Kieran or Dan, but just like a real person where you answer the phone. And there's a couple organizations that we're tracking at ERP AI where if you talk to it for a while, you can eventually figure it out. But first glance or first listen, you can't tell that it's not a person because the the dialect and the responsiveness is so good that it sounds like a human being, any human being, not necessarily a specific person. Is there another category, Kieran?
No, I think that's it, because again, and by the way, I adore this good use of this technology. It was our friend from OpenAI, Altman, who said he expects to see a one-person, $1 billion company. And you're sort of going, well, what am I selling? Rock-sized diamonds from the moon that dropped in my house. It wasn't that. I get what I think, which is, look, now we can use generative AI robots, whatever else it is, to build a business. So I've got a digital twin that I'm building at the moment that you can go in and ask it any sort of question, just typing at the moment, to find out what is transformation, what is this, what is that, what's the other. And what I want to use it for is, a bit like LinkedIn at times. I want you to see my expertise. I want you to come along. And if you can take the expertise and run with it yourself, go for it. All boats floating tide again. But I want you to understand, Matt, that I'm exceptionally good at what I do. So you have hundreds of articles on my books and everything else. And I want you to use that to then contact me. Great. Now what I want is, ideally, I would have an outbound robot, agentics or agent or autonomous digital worker, doing my social media and creating that for me, because the technology's there, allows it to do it. I want to do selling. I wanted to do customer service. I wanted to do meeting booking. And all this is technologically possible. And why do I want to do that? Well, I don't want to have to, where I don't need to spend money, hire lots of people. So tick, 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 all of the technology that's there. Then it goes back to, well, for yin, there's yang, so ethically, should I be telling people that this is a digital outbound agent, not me? And I want it to sound like me, but I also want it to sound, like the French version of me, the German version of me. I don't mean with an accent. I do a lot of AI masterclass training, and I'm limited by the amount of time I spend in the class digitally or physically. Well, what about if I create another deep fake of me, put in English, put it up online, let it deliver courses all over the English-speaking world? What if I could change my voice, and you can with this technology, translate it automatically in German, Spanish, French, Japanese, or whatever else? Now I'm delivering the same courses at the same time digitally 24/7 and earning a huge amount of money. But then it goes back to what we're saying, fake phone calls, relatives. And there's a great advert. It's a pity I didn't find it for today. And it's basically saying, look, if we just listen to your voice or get a couple of pictures, then now we can use this AI to re-image you, deep fake you. It'll sound like you, tick, tick, tick. And there was an example a little while ago. Folks, look it up. It was someone deep faked the CEO and the board of a company. Now, this was visual tech, but it was also the voice tech part of it as well. They invited the CFO into the company. They had a board meeting and basically went, or an executive meeting. Okay, now we've done that. We want you to transfer $25 million to this bank account. And the CFO went, okay, looks like it, sounds like it. Everything's in place. With nice meeting. Boom, they did it. That's the last time you'll see that £25 million amount of money.
Yeah. Yeah, so to me, part of me, it's always a matter of, it's more, like you said before, it's more nuanced, it's more complicated. Let's not oversimplify it. I was pretty frustrated with the FCC in the US kind of blanket, because they didn't just say you can't mimic voices. They said no AI voice calls at all. And I'm thinking, how many small businesses would benefit from an entire call center of people to sell their products? You talk about concern over manufacturing jobs and unemployment. Here's an opportunity for everybody to get into a business and have the scale of a larger company. And if you're really pro business, or at least pro small business, why would you not want something like that? Why would you not want outbound agents or even inbound agents? One of the biggest issues for every corporation in the world is dealing with the equation of customer service costs versus upside and cost versus revenue. So now you have an opportunity to mitigate some of that cost. But the FCC, and by the way, the US government never does anything quickly, right? But all of a sudden, in like a few weeks, they come out with this regulation with crazy fines. I don't know if they're actually enforcing them or not, but these crazy fines for anybody initiating these calls. I wish they would have said, hey, it's illegal to mimic a voice that's not yours, or it's illegal to mimic voices even at all, because you know, it's one of these, do the pros outweigh the cons? I don't know the pros outweigh the cons. Your use case is an interesting one of mimicking your voice, but you know, I'm okay with, I don't know if I want my voice to be out there, right?
But it is.
But I'm okay with it being an anonymous voice.
But see now, because we're talking, I've now got your voice. So if someone's recording this, all I need is, you know, X numbers of minutes or seconds of your voice to have it entirely.
Right,
Deep fake, you take a picture, you make it work.
So the question is,
And the
is
FCC
that work? Like, you know, is there something proprietary about that where you'd say, hey, the positives of that outweigh the negatives? That to me is a harder sell, especially when you have things like, you know, banks that have invested millions of dollars into voice authentication, and now all of a sudden you can make a phone call as somebody else, or in the Joe Biden robocall scenario, you believe it's
and
somebody
that's
else.
happening all around the world. Happening Germany, Sri Lanka, UK, take your pick. It's all happening. Yeah, it's sort of, but there's a whole industry there. I was talking to a chap a little while ago who he gets actors' voices, records them, and now all of a sudden that's the, you know your IVR, press 1, press 2. That's that. Those voices then are sold on. And here's a scary one. There was I can't remember the name of the actress in the UK. She was doing a radio production for someone, and they hired her, recorded her voice. It was a 6-part series. She did the first series, and then she hadn't heard anything. She got to read, what's going on? Where, my agent, what's going on? And says, no, don't worry, we've got your voice. Yeah, no, but no, we've captured your voice. We're now don't need you anymore. Yeah. If you'd have read the contract, it says, now we've captured it. We're going to mimic it, and it sounds like you, and we're going to use the other 5 episodes that was
a big part of the Hollywood strike. People don't realize that was really what was a big part of what the strike was about, is that actors wanted to have the rights and the royalties associated with their likeness and their voice.
100%. That's the same thing. So she got no money, went crazy in the press as she did, got a lot of attention. Now it's disappeared again. So look, it really depends. It goes back to what you're saying there. Small business, automate it, digitize it, scale it. There'll be platforms out there, IVRs, you know, translate your voice into German, French, Spanish, allow you to be in multiple places at the same time. Absolutely tick, tick, tick. But it goes back to everything, you know, what can be used for good can be used for bad. You know, the immediate thing is let's just ban it. That's nonsensical, because if it's inside of the US borders, then yes, you may be able to go after a particular group who do it. But remember, this is technology land. I can mask it, I can hide it, I can bounce it out of Sweden, Norway, Russia, South Korea. I was going to
say, you set up a Bahamas company and, you know, you call out of there, right?
Yeah, but it's interesting because we have British Telecom in the UK, who used to and still do have a tremendous number of traffic sources. They block a lot of calls. So you can subscribe to services that, you know, warn you or block. And after a while, you'll probably realize that, you know, there'll be something in the tech, there'll be something in the sound, there'll be something somewhere that they can stop it at front end. You pay a couple of dollars to get it done. But let's see, you know, it's an evolving space. It goes back to a little bit like this. And here's the real worry. You and I are educating people about these things. Oh my goodness, I never knew you could do that. Look at all the positives, but there's negatives. You know, that's the key piece here. But what we then do is next time someone rings up, is that really Dan? Is that not Dan? Every time I get an email from my bank or someone rings me up from the bank, and the odd time they do and says, look, we're going to have to verify your identity. And I'm saying, look, I'm not telling you anything. And I had my bank a couple of months ago, the poor person on the other end was pulling their hair out. I'll send you a text message. Great, send me that. That's fake. I'll send you an email. Well, I'm used to getting emails from banks called scams. So now the real bit is I don't know what's fake and I don't know what's real. So therefore I believe nothing.
Well, that's my point, right? To me, it's a societal issue of, hey, put that warning label on the cigarettes, but if you want to smoke, you can smoke, but at least know the risks. I mean, I think we're already there, right? To your point, whether it's an AI thing or a human thing or an email thing or a voice thing, I'm skeptical, right? You have to be skeptical at this point. You have to assume that it's not that way, that it's not legitimate, and whether it's a person on the other end of the line or an AI agent on the other end of the line, I don't know if it matters. I think the education has to be there to say, you know, hey, if you hear something that sounds, and that's why I think the mimicking is different than the AI voice thing in general, because you're right. Like, you know, it used to be, you know, we do business with a lot of large corporations and they have procurement departments, right? So there's always a risk person that, you know, before they send you a payment, they want to verify your bank information verbally. And I always thought to myself, like, anybody could just provide this information, right? But now anybody really could provide that information because, you know, it's mimicked. So they're going to call me to verify the same information that was in an email. It doesn't matter whether it's an email or it's a voice. It's not, you can't trust it. So I think as an industry, we got to find different ways of authenticating this stuff, because clearly video, email, text, chat, deep fakes, voice, it doesn't matter. Any of them can be exploited.
Yeah, no, they all can. Like, we did the same thing a couple of years ago in the UK. If you look at banknotes, I haven't used a banknote in a while, you put a little strip in the back of it, and everybody's going to this. Well, we get all the Googles of the world, we get the Metas of the world, and all these tools that can create this to put a link, a digital link, so it can be, seen by technology. But that assumes that, all these good legal companies are going to follow all that guidance. The real naughty lot aren't going to do that at all, and they're going to phone you from the Bahamas or somewhere that you probably don't even realize. So again, I think education help. My fear is that everybody believes nothing going forward. And again, here's a classic example: NotebookLM to record voice and have things talk to itself. Brilliant use of the technology. I can now get my books put out in audio, help people who are visually impaired to actually hear these things. Fantastic, tick the box. I can record this in multiple languages. Great. Now I can sell my books and content and everything else across the globe, get better known. And then it could be used for something else, So, but here it's all bluster, it's all hype, it's all the amazing stuff. There's none of that. But what if? And I get that from someone who's trying to promote a technology, but it would also be lovely. I'm not talking about cigarette packs in the UK, which a picture of dying people in lungs. What I'm saying is, look, put the tech out. You have a responsibility that what can be used for really great purposes. And I'm a huge fan of tech for good. There's some things that can go wrong. Here's how we're going to help. Here's how we're going to put a bit of manners around it. Much like we do, as we were saying, the health industry. You can't just put a drug out and go, there you go, folks. We'll work it out afterwards. You have to have a little bit of, something to put into play that provides a little bit of protection. And that's kind of what I liked about GDPR. Hasn't quite worked out the way we want. It's kind of what I like about the EU Act, which is if you're building engines like this, then you have to be able to understand it yourself. Many companies don't, because it's too deep, too layered. And also you have to be able to explain it to people. And if we come at you and you've made a decision that really impacts a human society, whatever else, then you want to be damn well certain that you've made a good, ethical, responsible decision, and you better be ready to explain it to us as well, So let's see. Interesting time.
My issue with this headline, I think a lot of people look at this headline and are concerned with the word listen. I argue that ship has sailed, and we're beyond that as a society. I mean, if you have, Siri or Google Assistant or a car with a recent infotainment system, or you're like me and have an Alexa in every room in my house, I think that ship, or you have a video doorbell, or you live on a street where any of your neighbors have a video. I mean, to me, that ship has sailed. My bigger concern is the word sources, right? So, you already have, we talked about the echo chamber thing before, we already have this issue of people, news and facts and truth and journalism are all gray now. More gray now than ever before. Fake news, thanks to the US election system. You already have that. And that's when you get, in theory, multiple sources of information. Now you're relying on a voice assistant. And by the way, it also applies to ChatGPT and large language models. But, now that you're going to have a thing on your watch, on your phone, in your car, that's going to decide which source is correct. Do we completely lose what my daughter's learning in school, the critical thinking part of, hey, I read this book, I read this passage, and I have to figure out what's true and what the main idea is? Do we lose that as a culture, the way that we don't know how to multiply and add because we have calculators?
Yeah, and again, it goes back to, I kind of like critical thinking. That's the bit we're brought up. It's the human side that we really want to emphasize. But then again, if an independent, what does that even mean? Non-biased, doubt that ever's going to happen, technology that's been designed to elevate us can work. More of it. I'm not going back to an abacus or using sticks to count ever. It's beneficial. The same thing when it comes to voice tech, deep fakes, media, entertainment systems, connected cameras, or whatever else. If they help me, absolutely fantastic. I think for the last decade or two, though, to a good degree, there's been so much emphasis and progress and not interrupting tech companies and that tech equals good, Whereas, you know, when the same thing comes to law, we just wouldn't allow dodgy laws to happen. You know, the same thing comes to medical. We wouldn't allow people to chuck drugs out and just go for it, or food. You know, we wouldn't just allow it out willy-nilly. But we appear to be saying, well, when it comes to tech, it's too complicated for the normal politician or the normal human to understand it. Therefore, you just trust us. You know, we're Silicon Valley. We know best. You know what I mean? When realistically you go, oh dear. But we are so caught up in all our hype. We buy all the technology. We buy all the stories. We say ethics is boring. We hope someone else is taking care of it. They're not. And therefore, it is up to us. But there's too many media sources in the world to try and understand something. But it's a bit like, and I did it last year. I reported a story out that came out, and I looked at 5 or 6 different sources just before I do it, because I try to be careful with my audience. Guess what? Those 5 or 6 different sources were all robo spam to make it look like it was a true story around something that's happening.
Google ad business. That's why they're breaking
Google ad
up.
business. And that goes back to my fear. You know, we stop believing in anything and everything, and therefore we'll be worse off as a society. Let's see where it gets us down over the next numbers of weeks and months.
Interesting. Well, Kieran, this was fun, man. It's good to have you as a co-host and get to have you for the full show. Looking forward to the next one. Thanks for joining, and thanks for joining everybody. We're back on Wednesday, October 23rd at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. In the meantime, if you want to schedule a free automation or AI program health check or out of the possible briefing session, go to irpaai.com and schedule that. In the meantime, have a great week, everybody. Kieran, safe travels, buddy.
Safe travels, and stay safe, everyone, as well. Enjoy the tech responsibly.
Take care, guys.